Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum presented by the Catholic Finance Association and sponsored today by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. I'm delighted to say that we have two awesome guests with us today. We have Sam Morthland and Rob Hegedus from CISO Global leading the CHECKLIGHT initiative, which is a cybersecurity product which is being adopted by a number of Catholic dioceses and other groups. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being with us. Name the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint John Paul II, pray for us.
That's nice.
Our Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Well, gentlemen, let's start with what you're doing right now, and that's the CHECKLIGHT initiative by CISO Global. What is CHECKLIGHT all about?
I'll go ahead and start, and then I'll let Sam jump in here. So, in order to explain what CheckLight is, I have to give a brief, about 40-second background. Um, and we can get into detail later, but as Sam will attest, normally when I start this diatribe, it can usually last about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So, in consideration of your audience, I'll truncate it
Charitable.
significantly.
Thank you.
But sure. So, we started a cybersecurity company about 12 years ago. We used very specific military grade technologies that were developed within the 395 Beltway. We joined forces with the largest bank in Virginia so we could get access to the insurance side of the industry. About 7, 8 years later, we commercialized that technology. We combined it with, and it's first of its kind, with insurance industry underwriting. And it is used to protect the small business community and specifically the Catholic Church. And if it doesn't work, there's an insurance component that will pay for any damages. So it's a new way of taking or offering cybersecurity financial protection to the most underserved portion of the market at a significantly discounted price from what regular commercial insurance would be. Sam, am I missing anything?
No, I was going to say the thing I'd add is, in our instance, most dioceses are focused on the pastoral center and cybersecurity at the pastoral center because of I'll say the normal divisions between the diocese and the parishes, and there's not a lot of central administration for IT. But this program allows a tool that to be used by individual parishes and controlled by individual parishes and protect them when they don't have a lot of IT experience or knowledge to protect the information that their parishioners entrust to them as far as their personal identifiable information, credit card information, that kind of stuff that the parishes would have. So it's a very inexpensive and advanced way to protect the parishes as individual entities.
Wow, very cool. Why is it called CHECKLIGHT?
I'll answer that one because I am not a marketing guy. And about 5 years ago, we were thinking of a name for it. And in its essence, it's a check engine light, just like a check engine light in your car. Check light's there to notify you if you have any advanced malware or anything like from a phishing campaign or something that can cause ransomware, to let users know that there's something there. Just like a check engine light is there to let you know that there's an issue with your car. And to take the analogy a little further, checklight means go talk to your MSP or your IT provider or somebody that manages your network or your computer infrastructure. The check engine light says you might want to talk to your mechanic because there's an issue.
That's
Very
that's one of
cool.
the big benefits we've seen with the parishes is they don't know what the status of their machines are. So like the 5 or 10 computers that are being used by the staff. I mean, usually laptops, some desktops. They don't know the condition of them, but Checklight gives them a level of asset visibility so they can know whether or not those machines have been updated, patched, and are protected against malware or ransomware.
How would you characterize the scope of the threat, the cybersecurity threat facing Catholic
Oof.
dioceses, parishes, etc.? Is it vast? Is it expanding? Just give us some color on that.
All
5 minutes.
right. Okay. So I think so I'm starting to see that um, I'll go first and then Sam will give more detail. And so I think we'll continue that. So Sam can give you more details on one of the larger archdioceses that we did our test in, but I think over a 12-month period, we stopped about 1,200 threats. The nature of the threat is getting more sophisticated. Checklight itself, the core technology was developed about 13, 14 years ago to find advanced nation state 0-day specific threats, which 12 years ago were almost exclusively targeting large enterprise type businesses. Now that same type of technology can be bought in the dark web for about 150 bucks, and they are using that to target parishes
Hmm.
and small businesses. And the not only the severity, but the number of attacks has been increasing year over year. There are many reasons for that. There's large geopolitical reasons for that. Globalization is winding down. You have nation states that are looking for ways to replace their revenue streams. And this is an easy way to do it, especially when you consider in 2023, we saw a transfer of about $8 trillion in wealth to cyber criminals and nation states that support that activity. And this year, I believe, based on cybersecurity ventures, that number is supposed to increase to 10 trillion.
Hmm.
Before I let Sam jump in here with the specifics, if cybercrime was its own national entity, it would have the third largest GDP on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it is a growing threat for the Catholic Church because they know, unfortunately, Catholic Church has money, like other companies. And unfortunately, because of the overall construct of the diocese to parishes, there are lots of holes in the continuity of information and things. So they go after, lately, honestly, it's been some of the Catholic ministries,
Catholic charities.
Catholic charities of each archdiocese, sorry, have been targets because again, they're out public. So the more information you put out on the web, the bigger target you're going to be. So one of, like some standing policies we've seen, and we've got some dioceses that are changing some of their policies after our recommendations are, don't publish your entire office roster with their names, email addresses, and phone numbers. It's a great convenient thing, but it's convenient to everybody on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So if that information is available, it increases your attack surface that an adversary can come after you. And I use adversary generally to mean anything from commercial people to nation states. So somebody who's looking to find information, because now what they're doing is they come in usually through a phishing attempt. So somebody will get some information, they'll get a goofy email. So a lot of people hate the phishing training that everybody goes through, but it's an important part to be suspicious, honestly, of every email you receive, especially if it asks you for something immediately and something that's not part of your normal process for your organization. But people respond to that. We're all human nature. Hey, click on this for a free whatever. Click, off we go. And that's how we get they get our foot in the door. And then once they're inside your network, unless you have tools like CHECKLIGHT that are monitoring what's happening in the individual computer or across the network or the links in the network, you're not going to know. They're inside your environment because they have somebody's password. So they're legal in the system as far as everything's concerned. But suddenly it's like, why is John looking at 80 megabytes of information from the radio station that the diocese supports? It's like, well, he shouldn't be doing that. Why does he have that access? So a lot of entities have not put in access controls crosswise. So that's how they get in and do things. But in a bigger picture, they're coming after many organizations that may not be the dioceses themselves or the parishes themselves, but they're schools, cemeteries, seminaries. We've helped Catholic charities, I've already mentioned. So all these organizations, because again, IT is not their mission. IT supports their mission, but
Right.
there's still it's not reluctance. There's a lack of knowledge of how reliant those organizations are on their IT infrastructure. Because if I turn to anybody in the church and say, guess what? You've lost your computers for up to 6 weeks before they can be rebuilt and redone. How's that going to affect even ministries, right? Not just normal operating Sunday church kind of things, but just ministries that are dealing with people and appointments and all that kind of stuff. So it is a big thing.
Yeah, indeed. So guys, walk me through this. So, I have my my diocesan office or my Catholic cemetery office, and I'm putting my team through the phishing training, and they know not to wire money to anyone that asks for it, or whatever like that. We're going through the basic training that office has been doing for many, many years. Why is CheckLight critical to add on top of that training and those practices that have been in place for some time? What makes a CheckLight equipped office more resilient versus cyber threats than one that doesn't have it?
Because something is always going to get through.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be through a phishing campaign. It could be through a direct injection of malware. It could
Mm.
be visiting a weird site. There's hundreds of different ways to do it. And so one of the, and I'll let Sam talk to some of the concerns that CheckLight takes care of, but some of the concerns that we've heard is, well, CheckLight's going to be spying on us. No, it doesn't. It works at the kernel level. It doesn't look at what you're saying in your emails or who you're talking to or anything else, but it's looking for suspicious activity. So depending on, regardless of how it gets through, if the AI engine that is built into it, and we can get into the specifics on that later. So the more technical members of this audience can go, ooh, all right, the cool stuff. It looks for anomalous behavior on that one machine. And really, the warranty itself, the underlying financial protection, doesn't kick in until 48 hours after CheckLight is downloaded. And why is that? Because it's looking for a baseline of activity, not on the user. One laptop or one computer could have 30 users. It doesn't matter, but that's the amount of time that the machine learning capability needs to build a baseline. Anything outside of that it'll start looking at it from an advanced attention perspective. This is another layer. There are many layers of cybersecurity, but for small businesses, for dioceses, for parishes, for schools, for assisted living facilities, for small medical practices, the majority of what they do is on the endpoint. And so it's important to have a layer of protection on that endpoint, and don't put it all on the person's shoulders, because something's always going to get through.
Yes.
There's that 7-layer model. So defense in depth is the concept, right? So if there's a 7-layer model where the humans are on the most top level, we're the outside, and I have one of my customer service reps calls it the human virus, right? Because we're get into everything and wreck everything.
Yeah.
But you go through to network and firewalls and everything else, and then you finally get down to the endpoint, your actual computer, what's happening on your computer. So historically, I'd say until like the last year or two, people were focused at the network level and protecting the network, isolating the network so nobody could attack the network. Well, the problem is once COVID hit and we sent everybody home with a laptop, the network wasn't really the most exposed surface anymore. It's all the laptops.
Yeah.
So now we have to protect the laptop. And what CheckLight does is it resides on the laptop, and that's what it's designed for. So it's at the kernel level down, looking only what's happening, what processes are being launched. I don't care what they're looking at. I don't care, anything beyond you opened Outlook, you opened Google, right? So what we're looking for is if the program opens something different, like a specific case, there's adware that we catch called Clear. I don't know if you ever heard of Clear. Clear basically hijacks your Outlook browser, reprograms it so all their ads show up all the time. You can't get rid of them, and it embeds itself in your operating system. It's a really painful application, but it's not ransomware. It's not asking for any money. It's just putting adware on your machine. Well, CheckLight stops that, because once the Clear exe file starts to execute, CheckLight goes, wait a minute, that's a bad process, and it stops it and quarantines it because it's a threat. So that it won't run. So when it does that, it sends the main person for the parish gets a email, gets a text, and their dashboard. We have a web-based dashboard that they can access. All get notifications on all 3 of those means that there's a threat been detected on that waypoint, or excuse me, on that endpoint. And when that happens, it's actually good news, because it's stopped. It's not allowing it to run. What people get frustrated is they'll try to install a new program, and if CheckLight goes, it looks kind of strange, it'll stop it. And it won't let them run it. So I get phone calls, it's like, hey, well, let me run this program. It's like, well, are you sure that's the program you want to run? And they're like, yes. It's like, we have ways within the program that you can put it on the allowable list, so that, if you upload a program that contains, one of the big ones is PowerShell. And if people are familiar with PowerShell, but a lot of malware is embedded in a PowerShell. It's an internal Windows program that has to run. A lot of malware can be inserted within the code of that. So anytime you're running a PowerShell, it looks kind of weird from a weird place on your drive or anything else. CheckLight will go, wait a minute, stop it until you tell me you want me to allow you to run it. So it's very, it does a lot of preventive action that way. So we're down looking at what your process is doing, and that's it. Again, what Rob mentioned, something we haven't really foot stomped too much, is the warranty. So if we fail to detect something and it turns out to be ransomware or malware and it takes you down, we pay the first $250,000 as first payers of your remediation and recovery efforts. So now most dioceses and archdioceses are collaborative insurance groups. So it allows them to move some of that risk out of their collaborative insurance to us. we take on that risk through our warranty, the insurance policy we have that supports the warranty. So it's a way for them to subrogate some of that risk, make us first payer. So financially, it's in my personal opinion, it's a smart move to move that risk, and it's fairly inexpensive for the relative value that you get. We have one very large parish, diocese, that's our launch customer, that in last year was kind of our test year with them, first year full application across virtually about 98% of the parishes in the archdiocese. And by running that program, they had 0 additional cybersecurity expenses. In
Wow.
previous years, it had been significant. So
very significant.
We have demonstrative proof, right? Besides the fact that nobody's made a claim against us, that it works. And the biggest hurdle we have is honestly, is getting to those parishes on that. Rob mentioned it was, they're spying on us. It's like, nobody's spying on what you're doing. Nobody cares about the budgets. Nobody knows what your numbers are.
That's really been our biggest hurdle. Yeah, that's been our
biggest hurdle from a cultural perspective. But anyway,
but I do have to add that CHECKLIGHT itself was designed to be so simple to download and so simple to use that whoever is managing the parish, cybersecurity is probably their 4th or 5th additional duty, that they're able to download it and use it in a minute or 2.
Yeah.
And we haven't had really many
No, and one of the things I love the best is it is kind of fire and forget. Once you download it, you install it. Rob mentioned it builds that user heuristic, so we understand how that machine is being used. Once it's up and running, every Sunday they get an email from the system going, "You're either good or bad." You're good, and everybody likes to get that one. It's like, okay, but it's that positive reinforcement. Somebody doesn't even have to go look at a dashboard. As the main parish POC or system administrator, it tells them weekly how they're doing. If they want to, they can dive into it. But we've developed the interface. It's very simple. In fact, we had some folks that were like, "Oh, it's too simple." It's like, we're designing it for people to do a quick look. It literally has at the top of it has a green bar, or it has a bar that's either green if you're good or red if you're bad. I mean, that's it. That's about as deep as some people go, and they'll go, "I have a red bar, help me," and they go to their IT people or somebody else that they can get some support
Well,
from.
we all want to be green, and gentlemen, we'll touch upon your military background here in a minute, but I've always looked at cybersecurity kind of as an arms race. I mean, you kind of have the bad guys that are trying to invent new forms of malware and Trojan horses and all these nasty things. And then there's the good guys like you that are trying to, create, technology to protect Catholic dioceses and other enterprises that don't want to be invaded. I am concerned though. I mean, if on the dark side of that equation, the bad guys, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, the size of the economy of the 3rd largest country in the world. You guys aren't trillionaires, I don't think. You know what I mean? So like, if the other side has more substantial resources than you do, how do you stay ahead protecting your clientele, including Catholic dioceses, from this well-funded aggressive threat?
I think I can answer that. The country with the largest GDP on the planet is the United States, and the core technology is used by federal agencies who provide feedback to the constant update development of the software. So the same tool that is being used to protect federal agencies is being used to protect the parishes. And I'll also add, so I hope the bad guys aren't listening to this, but if they are, I don't care. So I think we're actually one step ahead of them, and we're going to continue to be one step ahead of them because we're protecting probably the most important geopolitical assets on the planet, as well as the Catholic Church, which is extremely important to all of us. I will also so it's constantly being updated. I'll also add that the processing is all done on the AWS cloud. So what does that mean? That means if a very advanced piece of malware is targeted against a specific federal agency and CHECKLIGHT catches it, or the core technology behind CHECKLIGHT catches it, within milliseconds, every single archdiocese, diocese, parish, you name it, is protected by that same thing. So everyone is inoculated at the same time. So that allows the speed of notification to stay up with the parishes just as it is with the federal clients. Sam, am I missing anything?
No, I think the advantage we have with CHECKLIGHT is because a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just I have AV, right? I have an antivirus program. I've got other competitors. I won't name them, but I've got
Mm.
other competitors that are, that I'm paying for antivirus. And it's like, okay, great. In fact, one of the requirements for CheckLight is you have to have an antivirus. And we recommend most people use, if you're on a Windows system, use Windows Defender because it comes free with the OS and it's a good system. So that's kind of one of your layers. We talked about layers. One is that you have to have in the criteria, there are 6 metrics that you have to meet for our warranty. And basically it's updating your systems, updating your software. You have to have a firewall, you have to have an antivirus active, and you have to have the most current version of CheckLight, of course. So with those criteria all being made, that's it for the warranty to kick in. And running that antivirus, though, antivirus is historical. So an antivirus is built if you have a Windows machine every morning, whether you have your window pop up or not, it's pulling down an update every morning when you first log on of all this, everything that happened yesterday in the world is being updated to your antivirus so it won't happen to you today. So I call it left, it's right of the bang being the event. So it's always historical. Checklight is left of the bang. We're looking at what's happening right now on your machine, 24 hours, 7 days a week, at what process is trying to be launched on your machine. And if it meets criteria that looks like malware based on analysis, Checklight, there's a downloadable agent that you put on your machine. Each parish has its own coded agent, so only that parish looks at that information. If something looks questionable, it starts the analysis and it says, hey, if this looks questionable, then it sends the information to the processor in the cloud that does the deep analysis. So there's no bogging down in your machine. Even when we're processing a thread, it uses less than 1% of the computational power of your laptop.
Mm.
It's because it's all running in the cloud. Once the cloud goes, yeah, it's a bad guy or something, something's bad, it immediately quarantines it, sends the alert out. And as Rob mentioned, everybody in the CheckLight ecosystem gets notified of that threat, so that that information is available to everybody. That's how we stay ahead. The other part is our core technology is updated continuously from national level threat databases that are fed to from all the 3-letter agencies and CISA and all the other entities into databases that are publicly available and that we pull in so that we can do things rapidly to protect our clients and make sure that we have the most up-to-date information in the system to protect again. But that 0-day detection is the key because it's the unknown, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but why is this process, just the one I always use is like, well, suddenly why at 2 o'clock in the morning is my computer trying to talk to, Bosnia? I don't know. There's a virus in there or something. So we stop it and ask you, do you really want to do this? And if you're not there at 2 o'clock, in the morning to answer it, guess what? It doesn't happen. So that kind of thing.
Guys,
Yeah,
go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say there are very few times where you can quote Donald Rumsfeld, but this is one of them because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And the bad guys can create anything they want. We don't need to, it's not antivirus. We don't need to know the exact signature. We just need to know that it's doing something weird and it could be bad. And so that I think gives us sort of a operational advantage.
Oh, I
Plus
love
everything
that.
Sam mentioned about everything, going from the laptop to the cloud and the processing, this all happens in seconds.
Mm.
Yep.
It's pretty quick.
The other good Rumsfeld quote, by the way, is you go to war with the army you have.
That's right. That's right.
I'll often repeat it. But gentlemen, you have distributed CheckLight to a number of different clients all over the country and perhaps beyond. But you have a particular interest in serving Catholic clientele, Catholic dioceses, parishes, other entities and institutions. Talk to us a little bit about why that is. Why are you interested in working with the Catholic community in particular?
I'll start. 2 reasons. One of them, when we first started looking to partner in the insurance industry, the National Catholic Risk Retention Group were the first ones that really showed interest in this. And I saw that as kind of a sign, really. And it was a self-insurance market, so the captives and the risk retention groups who are sitting on the capital that would have to pay out for catastrophic losses that were ahead of your normal carrier because they're looking at what could affect me right now. And as I started thinking about it, the other reason was, one of the reasons I joined the military and do the things I do is I want to protect those that really can't protect themselves. And the church really represents, I think, some of the most vulnerable members of the let's say the global intranet. because they're focusing on a faith-based mission, doing good things in the world, not focusing on let's have the best network security, which makes them very vulnerable. And for me, it's kind of almost a personal crusade, based on my background, to focus on helping those that I think deserve the help and need the help, so they can continue to do the good work.
Rob, let's
I mean,
explore that background in a little bit more detail. Like, what do you mean by that? Has service to others, protecting others, always been a part of your life? Is that a big part of who you are?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's honestly the reason why I joined the military.
Mm.
I'm an immigrant, came to the United States when I was 7. And I grew up Roman Catholic, and my parents were from Hungary. My father was actually a anti-communist revolutionary during the Hungarian Revolution of
Wow.
'56. And when Life magazine did, I forgot what year it was, but they did a big expose on it. He was actually in some of the pictures. They're holding a gun back when they captured Budapest for about a week and a half. But so kind of a faith-based approach to um, finding your path in life to serve others, right? And so that's one of the reasons I did join the military. I went to Notre Dame, great school, go Irish. We were
Yeah.
national champions my sophomore year.
Yeah.
Last time we were
Lou
national
Holtz, right?
champions. Yes, Lou
Oh
Holtz. That's
man.
right. The
What an
second year
era.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a fun year, and I can wax poetic on that, later
It's
if you
awesome.
want. But that was a good time. So I went through their ROTC program there, and I wasn't planning on making a career out of it. I just wanted to, kind of pay back. That's kind of what
Yes.
my father taught me. We came to this country given a lot of opportunities. You owe it to the country to pay back through service, and I want to do that through the Air Force. Ironically, the Air Force wasn't done with me after I got out in 9 years, 9/11. I volunteered to come back and spent 2 more years supporting the global war on terrorism. And early on in my career, when I was stationed in England flying intel missions, that's when I met Sam. So I've known Sam since 1993,
Wow.
94. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been over 30 years, and so this has been
Crazy.
a friendship that's kind of grown over time, and we ended up going into business together. So it was pretty neat.
And your friendship has literally seen all kinds of different spaces and countries and parts of the world, right?
Oh
In,
yeah.
in fact,
Oh yeah.
you flew together in the Bosnian conflict back in the
Yep.
90s, right? Talk to us a little
Yep.
bit about that service.
Go ahead, Sam. I'll let you talk about that.
Changes in the '90s. So yeah, in the mid '90s, we were flying out of England, and Rob was a person that would. I was a navigator on Special Operations C-130s, and we go fly and support basically up and down the Adriatic, flying. My particular mission set was for combat search and rescue, and then we also had Rob and his teams on board to listen for folks to see if we could find them and gather information. So through that, we flew together many times over the years, and then kept bumping into each other over the years. Back at the main base we went back to was Hurlburt Air Force Base in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. A horrible
Yep.
place to be assigned, but
Yep.
yeah, yeah, that was interesting. But no, I mean there were a lot of missions, and yeah, so it was it was a fun time, and miss flying every day, but. Little bit of a different trajectory for me. Catholic family. My father was an Air Force officer. I moved every 3 years growing up. Had an interesting, deeply Roman Catholic upbringing. My mother was a novice for 6 years, and so we were very firm in our faith in our family, and grew up, of course, following my dad around. And when it came time to um, graduate high school and all that, had designation to the academies and an ROTC scholarship, and decided to go the ROTC scholarship route, and ended up navigating airplanes, which was I wanted to fly, which was cool. So I
Gosh, I
did
love
that
that.
for 22 years and finally retired off the OSD staff and had many wonderful tours in between. That again would take hours to talk about all of them. But through that whole time, honestly, I was active in the Knights of Columbus, Charter Grand Knight for a council in the Lakenheath Air Force Base and Mildenhall Air Force Base in England. Stood up a council there, and I've had a deep faith relationship and active churchgoer, all that kind of stuff through my own life. And God's led me in a lot of different places. Things have shown up out of the blue, to being one, as the gentleman I'm now partnered with was, hey, I'm starting a cybersecurity company. What do you want to do something? So I joined him as a plank holder when he started the company. And then after, he started 11, 12. So 7 years later, I was
Yeah.
looking for a new position because I had retired. I went into the defense consulting world, did that for 5 years. And then I became a executive operations officer for a woman-owned small business providing services back to the government. And I was in charge of 175 people doing that and grew the company from 7 million to 24 million. So I was happy with that.
Wow.
And looking for a change. And Rob, we jumped into cybersecurity together in 2019.
Yep.
And right after that, we decided to take the technology, the core technology that we were working on, and spin up and put a user-friendly front end on it, which we called CHECKLIGHT. So
Wow.
that's kind of
Good
how
summary.
we got to here.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead.
it's been a long, weird trip to get here, but um, I'm a firm believer in the crossroads of circumstance and providence,
Amen.
right? Everything had to happen a certain way for us to get here to where we are right now, to be able to take everything we've learned
Mhm.
in the past, honestly, past 30 years, because it's more than just going back to 2011, and to be in a position to actually take all that knowledge and experience and the technology that we've been using and perfecting, and now apply it to protect the church. Right? To
Yeah.
me, that's pretty serendipitous.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's well said, especially with each of you in your own way carrying forward your father's legacies, which I think is a beautiful part of about your story. Another thing I really like is just the the decades-long brotherhood you've shared. From the the cockpit and the interior of a C-130 now to the offices of CheckLight. All doing good and protecting others, serving others. Which is so noble and cool. I'm curious, and thank you for your service, including in a combat zone in the Bosnian theater. I'm curious, did you find that your military service gave you a good preparation in terms of, technology, computers, all the stuff that you guys are into now? Is a lot of what you're deploying now was the seed of that born in your Air Force service?
I would say yes, more so from the systematic approach that the military sort of trains you to look at every situation. Integrating technology into any given issue or problem has to be looked at from the same systematic approach. And there's a level of discipline, whether you're running a business or creating partnerships with technology providers or whatever else. And quite honestly, the what's the best way to say this? The integrity and the trust that is instilled in military service translates very well into the business community, especially when you're dealing with something um, as nuanced as combining insurance and technology, which is kind of new, right? So people want to make sure you're serious. They want to make sure you've done your homework and that you have the integrity to support that and back it up. And the discipline it takes to continue when you know you're on the right path, even though you're going to come across obstacles continuously in many forms. And again, I could talk about that for hours, but I don't want to delve into the entrepreneurial side of this. But that actually has been a huge benefit as well.
Rob, you
it,
mentioned, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, no, I was gonna say real quick for me. I mean, I started playing on Switz 6800 computers in
Yeah,
1979.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when I got into the Air Force as a navigator, I mean, I built computers, I wrote programming BASIC, I wrote text games. I had a blast, so I always chuckle with the TRS-80s they're showing on TV as ancient history and all that. So I had one and Commodore 64. But then I got into the Air Force and I ran at the Air Force Special Operations Command, Command and Control Systems Division. And I helped spearhead a new mission planning system that became an Air Force wide system. So I've been dabbling in computer systems and IT technologies, honestly, since 1979, and then through my Air Force career. But I think what Rob hits on a great point is coming out of the military is that form and structure for military planning, our military planning approach of how you look at things from a systematic perspective. You
Exactly.
think about, what's going to happen if this goes wrong. Branch plans is what we call them, something like that.
Mm.
And then, working with fellow veterans, there's a, because you mentioned brotherhood earlier, there is a brotherhood because there's an expected level of it's trust, but it's also performance. you know, we all come up, so it's like, you know, somebody like if he tells me something, I'm taking him at his word because I trust him because of
Absolutely.
things we've gone through. So and that's one big difference from the business world, but it's something that we try to carry into the business world and in our relationship with the dioceses. I mean, if we stand up and say something, we're doing it. I mean, that's just the credo that we've, you know, adopted in our lives. And, you know, back to your original question about taking care of the church, to me, it's a core mission of, you know, if I've got this great product, why wouldn't I try to have it benefit my church, you know, from in taking care of the church at a discounted rate. So that's one of the reasons why we've set this special program up.
Well, let's get into your faith journey a little bit, each of you guys, because I mean, we've touched upon it a little bit, but let's go deep. I mean, why is your Catholic faith such a strong part of your life? And can you talk to us a little bit about how you stay centered in your Catholic faith? Is there a particular practice of our faith? Is there a devotion? Is there a part of the church's teachings or the practice of the faith that really speaks to you, that's important to you? How do you stay sharp when it comes to your relationship with the Lord?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, let's start out, it's foundational, and it started with Sister Dorothy, who was my principal at St. Patrick's Elementary School when I first moved to the United States. And that was in Corpus Christi, Texas. And boy, she was tough, a disciplinarian, but fair. I loved her. She was great. And she actually kind of gave me a little bit of structure starting out. And that I started to um, kind of pay a lot more attention to the teachings and the foundational aspects of the church. I mean, we were going to mass every day, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to a homily to see, you know. And here I am, an 8, 9 year old kid. I'm like, all right, I'm actually kind of interested in this. Fast forward a little bit to high school, Sister Agnes Marie in Carnivore Academy, Corpus Christi, Texas. And she was another tough disciplinarian, but just the sweetest person I ever met. And they provided role models for me. And I think that's, you know, early on when you're, I think this is something that you'd probably don't expect from a high school student, especially, you know, in a Catholic school. But and I know they're not going out of their way to be role models to you, but there's a sense of inner serenity and peace that comes with, regardless of everything going on around you. And I think I've sort of built up on that over the years. It's a journey that never really ends, and I've had some pretty low times, right? And um, you know, for example, a few years ago, all business related and some personal stuff, you know, everyone hits low times. What did I do? I found solace by going to our local parish here in Chesapeake, Virginia, Prince of Peace, and it's closed during the day. And I would talk to the little ladies in the front, say, "Hey, can I come in and just pray? Can I come in and just sit and have a quiet time?" And that's what I would do. In the secular world, this would be called meditation, right? But it's about your personal connection with God, and it actually helped me through a lot of tough times. And I learned a lot of that early on, and so I'm still growing on that. But it actually centers me. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, it's using the examples that I saw growing up and applying that to my own personal connections, and allowing the community to, I mean, hey, can I come in? You know, it's a closed church. Hey, can I please come in and just, you know, spend about an hour in the pews? And they were more than happy to let me come in. So
I love that.
that really kind of opened my eyes.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, you know, as I mentioned, being a military brat, I moved every 3 years. So, you know, the dependence on your family and the dependence, in my case, on the church was throughout my entire childhood because we'd move and it got to a point where, you know, the consistency and constancy of the church was key to, you know, helping me adapt to new places where I moved every 3 years, you know, even into high school and then into college, you know, like I think most college students fell away a little bit and came back and said, okay, wait a minute, this is what I was missing because suddenly, you know, it's like, well, I needed you enter into a new faith group, you meet people kind of like we talked about brotherhood, you meet people who are like you spiritually and in your faith, and the touchstone of the Catholic Church. And one of the things that happened in Bosnia, a funny side story, is a couple friends of mine, actually a friend of mine that I flew with, and I decided to take an overnight train from Brindisi, where we were based, to Rome for the weekend. We got the weekend off, so we jumped to go see everything in Rome. And when we got to Rome, we went to St. Peter's. It was late in Saturday afternoon. Thankfully, we had brought our long pants so we could go inside the church. And we went to the back of the church, and I went to the copula, came down, and they announced they were going to start mass. And my friend who was Protestant, I said, "Would you mind sitting with me in mass?" He goes, "No, not at all." So we went back behind the main altar under the large chair of St. Peter. And it really truly hit home the universality of the Catholic Church. Because the priest was speaking the entire mass in Italian. The people up front were Italian. The middle people were Slavic countries from all over the place. In the back, there were Brits, New Zealanders, and South Africans and Americans. And we're all saying the same prayers in the same cadence in our own languages. And it was just a touchstone moment for me of, I'm part of a much larger church that God's acting all around the world. And I've always found solace in that. And then the other part of my faith is having just the deep knowledge of the faith. I've taught religious education. I'm in Boy Scouts as the Altari Dei and Pope Pius counselor. I do those kind of things to help spread the faith. And then, but I've always honestly worked my faith through service. So my career, I did 22 years in the Air Force, and through that time, I was, as I mentioned, Knights of Columbus, that kind of stuff, always active in different things. I'm very active in my church, helping do things and raise money and all that kind of stuff. So, living my faith through action, and trying to help people that need help. In fact, sometimes my wife rolls her eyes when I come back from something. She's like, "What'd you volunteer for now?" Well, okay, so that's how. And for me, it's Rob mentioned the quiet times. Unfortunately, with 4 kids, ages 24 to 11, haven't had a lot of quiet time over the past 25 years. But honestly, most times during the day, I have a couple minutes to just quiet prayer and thank God for everything that I've been given and where I've been guided to participate and do things, and the friends I've met along the way and the things that we're doing. And especially for my wife, because this year we're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So she was truly a gift from God for me. But yeah, so it's service. Service is the key for me, I think, and the touchstone there. And with the Knights, I meet 3 Tuesdays a month. I'm in a Knights of Columbus meeting, whether it's the council or the assembly. So we're always saying rosaries and everything else. And lately we've been doing a program called This Man Is You, which is a great program for just some introspective thinking about, how you're moving in your faith journey. So that's how I do it.
Wow, to both of you guys, thank you for just sharing so openly and being so transparent and vulnerable with all that, and great detail and great scope. I want to ask you this. I mean, each of you have had great success in business. Um, do you feel like your Catholic faith and your strong devotion to your faith has been an advantage for you as a entrepreneur and a business executive?
Oh, I would say yes. There is one other thing I wanted to add from,
Please.
I don't know why I didn't bring this up earlier, but my mother, back in April, bought me a membership in the Spiritual Union of Perpetual Adoration, meaning the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament Chapel in Corpus Christi, Texas, are praying for me every day at Mass for a year. And I don't know if that has a direct effect on business success, but I'll tell you, I feel a lot better about it. So
I think
I
it
have
might.
to, yeah, I had to mention that. I
Glad you
would
did.
say, and that part is actually pretty cool because that's a small chapel we used to go to all the time with my mom, and the sisters still remember me from, my gosh, like 20, 30 years ago. So that just plays on what Sam was talking about the community. I think it's pretty neat.
Yes.
I would say yes, because you need to have a moral compass and a grounding when you're dealing with others in the business community. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier: trust and integrity. And my Catholic faith has actually, and you know what? I don't really think about it unless I'm asked questions like this in an interview, and so I have to really think like, wow, I really actually did have an influence, because integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching, right? And so there's a set of, and all that is value based. It based on values that you grew up with. It's based on values of your faith. And those, I think, are easily transferable to success in business because other people can see that. And so they trust you. They're going to do business with you, whether it be a vendor or a client or a competitor. And sometimes that puts you at a disadvantage, but maybe those are the type of business partners that you don't want to do business with. So, in that case, it can actually shine a light on where you don't want to be.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is God always opens doors. It's amazing. We can plan
Yeah.
all we want, but sometimes you're like, oh, that didn't work. It's like, what's next? And something left turn, right turn, whatever, something opens and you were meant to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that, God's got a hand on the rudder of my life and, openly pray that he keeps me going in the right way and my children going in the right way. And that, that we keep opportunities open for it. But when it comes to, like Rob was saying, business and I think my faith has definitely had a role, especially honestly, one of the gifts of discernment. Sometimes he mentioned walking into relationships, you may not, something just doesn't feel, something's just not right, right? You got the little, I always kid people, they're like, oh, you have that little voice in your head talking to you. And it's like, that's not a little voice, that's the Holy Spirit telling you something. So it's like, if something doesn't seem right, guess what? We're not doing it. And, to the point of, having those codes and standards in your life. We have, besides the 10 Commandments, as I mentioned, I was an Eagle Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout, all that kind of stuff. So you have the 12 points of Scout law. All those kind of things help form your life and keep you going the right way. So if you treat people fairly and you can see how other people act and you gravitate to those kind of businesses and organizations, you're going to be successful because you're treating people right. So I've had many instances as a government contract lead where, I mean, we won a contract real quick, won a contract. They were being paid like $50,000 a position. The government was actually paying $60,000 for the position. The previous company was taking the money and funding another position with it. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. My recruiter came in and said, hey, guess what? I got them for 57. I said, no, you didn't hear me. I'm paying them 60. Period, dot, because that's what I'm being compensated for at a fair rate. That's what I'm going to compensate them for. So it's that ethics and you have to have that foundation, because I think that one of the biggest things that's affecting the business community writ large is situational ethics. Is
Yes.
people are making bad decisions short term.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
where did you think that up? Why did you think that would be a good thing?
Right.
Kind of thing. So that's how it was. But like I said, I think God's always had a rudder on everything that's happened in my life. So
Yeah, that's obvious. Guys, the listeners, the audience of the Faith and Finance Forum are very interested in building healthy corporate cultures. A lot of our audience asks about that all the time. Sam, with the success that you've enjoyed in business, especially that you outlined, that geometric increase of the business that you led before your CHECKLIGHT initiative, and Rob, I'm sure you have a comparable story to tell, so we'll hear from both of you guys. Talk to us a little bit about how you built, reinforced, safeguarded the culture of those teams. I mean, because clearly when you're producing those kinds of results with, Sam Morthland at the head, I mean, you guys are doing things the right way. You're doing things with integrity. You're working hard. You're serving well, and you're just, doing the right thing. How did you build that culture, maintain that culture, find people that were ready to buy into that culture?
yeah.
Just any comment you have on that, please.
Yeah, so from that perspective, when I was with that particular company, we were providing services to government contracts, and most of the people that I had working for me and that we hired to work on site for the government contracts were retired military. So we all came with kind of the same value set, which made it a little bit easier. So we already had a culture that could easily be adapted to the commercial side of the world. But then our headquarters staff was strictly, for the most part, civilian. But our CEO at the time, she had a very people-centric viewpoint and was very focused on treating people fairly. So I think that piece of the culture of taking care of your people first as a servant leader is the most important part of that culture. And that, not calling people, it's 7:30 at night unless you really have to, right?
Yeah.
Or, or telling people, I mean, I had so many people that I had to tell to take vacations. It's like, look, we had a use or lose policy. So it's like, if you didn't take it, and I always be after them, it's like, it's July. You need to be almost done with your leave days, sans Christmas and Thanksgiving. But you need, and because I had people to back them up. So that whole idea of taking care of people and making sure they are aware of the things that were available to them. The other one that happened in our company was funny. We had a wonderful education program. The company would pay for up to $5,000 a year for education if it was related to your job.
Wow.
We only had less than 5% of the people take advantage of it. I could never understand it. I kept going. It's like there was no hook. Like the military, you do it, you owe them one more year, right? It's like, okay, we're going to pay for 75% of your class. You owe us one more year. It's like, well, all right. But this was free money, but people weren't taking it. And some people weren't even signing up for the 401k plan.
Yeah.
So it's trying to get into that idea of trying to take care of people. So without being paternalistic, it's like, I'm not your dad, but I'm serious. My job as the executive vice president of operations at that time was to take care of my people.
Right.
And I think that's what resonated as far as our culture.
And that's been a theme of this whole conversation. Take care of the people, protect the people, work in their best interest. Rob, any thought on corporate culture?
Servant leadership, Sam said it very well. I mean, when I was going through officer training school, I was the first guy to offer. Even though I was the officer in charge, I was the first one digging into the trains because I would never ask someone to do something if I wasn't going to do it myself. My previous company, we had something called Random Lunch Day. It wasn't really that random. It was every Tuesday. But as the CEO, I would take everyone's order personally, and I would run to the store, and I would get the lunches, and I would come back, and I would serve it. And most people are like, "Why are you doing that? You're the CEO." But unless you're willing to put yourself in that position and people see that. They see if you're going to go out of your way to take care of them first, then you're really going to get the best possible outcome from their effort. And there were times early on when you're starting a startup, funding is short. Guess who got paid last or didn't get paid? Me.
Wow.
But under no circumstances did anyone else ever miss a paycheck. And so you have to go in with that mentality. And I think a lot of that is lost these days. We're like, no, I'm going to, the me culture. I'm going to take care of myself first.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a recipe. That's good for maybe short-term gain, maybe 1 or 2 quarters. But my gosh, long-term, that is a recipe for disaster. So I think we need to bring some of that culture back. It is about servant leadership.
Hey Rob, I'm curious. Being an immigrant to the United States and coming from Hungary, and your family lived under the Iron Curtain, Soviet occupation.
Yes.
Do you think that gives you a little more perspective, I guess, on the rareness of human liberty and the freedoms we enjoy in the United States?
Oh boy, yes, absolutely. I mean, growing up, my parents would tell stories about the police with the red armbands and the AKs, making sure that you were home at curfew by 9 o'clock at night. Both my parents were kids during the Second World War, so I heard stories about forced occupations, both the Germans and the Russians, because they were quote unquote liberated.
Right.
And of course, my father was a freedom fighter until Khrushchev's tanks rolled into Budapest in '56. So I was very well aware. More so, I will tell you. Here's a funny story. So when I first came to the States, it was halfway through second grade, and I was trying to explain to my classmates how cool it was that um, you could pretty much do anything you wanted to in this country, and nobody got it. And until you have some sort of exposure to what a lot of the rest of the world, sadly, is forced to endure as far as limitations in their freedoms, I think we really do take it for granted.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why service was instilled by my father to us. And both my brother and I both served in the Air Force for that very reason. We joined because we felt an obligation to give back to the country, nothing more. And yeah.
Sam, you got a thought on this?
No, I'm a firm believer that at some point in everybody's life, they need to leave the United States. Because until you travel somewhere, even if it's first world Europe, you're going to realize how good we have it in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, and God has truly blessed the United States and our ability to, take care of people where we can. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to get into any of that. But that idea that the freedoms that we have that are guaranteed by our Constitution are honestly a miracle, and it's been, you know, in force for so long, and now there are efforts to change some of that, which personally don't agree with, but there's a lot of stuff going on. But compared to the rest of the world, everybody needs to get out and go see what's going on in the rest of the world to understand what we have here.
Rob
I'd
and
agree more.
Sam, your stories are about family, faith, service, protecting others, developing skills and technology and cybersecurity specifically, leading others. It's just really remarkable, and we could probably talk for hours about this stuff, but we do need to wrap it up here. And I think it makes sense to end where we began with CheckLight, which you know, I'm hearing from you guys is the culmination of this entire journey that each of you had, and much of it together. You know, now CheckLight is out there protecting the innocent, protecting institutions that our society needs, including and especially the church. And let's focus on that as we wrap up here. Where are you at with your service to the Catholic community in the United States? Where do you see it going in the coming years? Give us, you know, kind of the baseline and where we're going to be in the coming years in terms of CheckLight's provision of strategic services to the Catholic Church.
Sure. So I'll let Sam get into the details on the strategy going out, but we had to prove ourselves with our breakout client first, which is one of the larger archdioceses. And we're able to demonstrate from an actuarial perspective that not only is it easy to use, easy to download, the asset management capability, which is not what it's sold on, but it allows the pastoral center to actually have a view of the efficacy of the protections that the individual parishes have now. That's huge if you think about it, because they really didn't have that beforehand. But to be able to bring the loss ratio on cyber losses down from, I'll just throw a number that may or may not be accurate, wink, wink, you know, say 500,000 a year in cyber losses down to zero is pretty significant. So we're just starting that journey. We brought on a few more dioceses, another large archdiocese, a few Catholic charities, a few schools. This has all been within less than a year, honestly.
Wow.
And so, right. So now we're building partnerships. We're going to the right venues to get the message out. And I hope it'll slowly snowball. And we are approaching, by the way, one of the reasons why we agreed to the acquisition a year ago, July, with CISO Global, is we anticipated, knocking on wood, but it worked out that it would be so successful that we would have rapid growth. And we would need to have a large technology partner that had the development and customer support capabilities on the back end for when that happened. And fortunately, we do have that with CISO Global. They have tremendous technical capabilities and a robust staff across the country. Some already doing other cybersecurity related efforts for dioceses on the West Coast. So this is it again, providence, right? There's no way I could have anticipated this perfect marriage 3-4 years ago, and now here we are. So I anticipate the growth being pretty significant over the next year or two within the church, and within the secular community. We're probably going to work with insurance agencies because they're the ones who are trying to protect the small businesses. The small businesses either can't afford or don't qualify technically with their infrastructure or what they have set up from a insurance policy perspective to get a policy. And CheckLight is a perfect solution right now to provide them some level of not only technical protection, but also a level of financial protection as well. And I think as we grow, those limits will grow, our partnerships with the underwriters will grow. So I think we're onto something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say for the strategy and the growth is, you know, getting the word out and having, because it's all about trusted relationships. So they take a long time to develop. We've been helping our main archdiocese customer for the past 11 years. We did their incident response and forensics work before we launched CheckLight. And we launched CheckLight. We're like, hey, we can save you a lot of money if you use CheckLight. And they agreed and became our launch customer. Now we're in 5 different dioceses. I think of interest, and nobody's going to complain that we mention it to your listeners and the main folks in your organization, is the Archdiocese of New York is about ready to launch, starting next month, CheckLight across the entire archdiocese to all the parishes. They're starting out a pilot program with about 100 parishes, and they're going to push to the rest of the remaining 160, I think, parishes and schools. And we've already talked to a couple other affiliated organizations in the New York, in and near the New York Archdiocese that have had some cyber incidents that want some help. So it's the growth through trust, through demonstration, and through demonstrating that we are here for the long haul to take care of the church and protect it with the warranty that we have, so that they don't have to pay money that could be used for other charitable works to ransom folks, or even for insurance payments and stuff like that. So that's ultimately our goal.
Gosh, and this is so critical in terms of the big picture, because the more money that the church can save on avoiding cybersecurity catastrophe or expenses for cybersecurity protections, the more funds and resources can be funneled to the real work of the church, the mission of the church,
Absolutely.
clothing the
Yep.
naked, feeding the hungry, protecting innocent life, all the
Yep.
things we do. Yeah.
Yep. The biggest thing that we informed one of the organizations that got hit with the virus, they didn't know that they maintain medical data. So when you maintain medical data, you're controlled by HIPAA, is an act that was controlled of medical information. That the potential fine for HIPAA violation is $10,000 per record. So if you have 10,000 people, that's a lot of money. I'm not doing public math. It's a lot of money in a fine. That's not even the cost to take care of everything. That's just a fine that's potentially there. And every state now has enacted their own timelines of reporting for cybersecurity incidences. And if you don't do it and put your head in the sand, you're looking at hefty fines. So that's what we're trying to prevent, to your point.
Well, I think yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're at the right place at the right time with the right product for the right customer, and none of this happened by accident.
Right.
Gosh, amen. Let's close right there. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. You are both busy people. Appreciate you investing a little bit with us on the Faith and Finance Forum. For those members of our audience interested in continuing the conversation with each of you and with CHECKLIGHT, a product, a cybersecurity solution by CISO Global, where can they learn more?
CISO.inc, CISO.inc is our homepage.
Yep.
Thank you,
And
gentlemen.
go to products. Yeah, go to products and click on CHECKLIGHT, and that's how you contact us.
We will do so. Thank you so much for being on the Faith and Finance Forum, presented by the Catholic Finance Association and sponsored by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. Everybody have a good weekend. God bless. Take care. See you next time.
Thanks a lot.